remarks or gestures made during the course of this meeting. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we gather, the Wiradjuri people, and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. Do we have any apologies? We're all here. Our General Manager, Paul Devery, is away ill, so he would be the only apology. Thank you. A seconder, Councillor Watt, Councillor Speechley. All those in favour? Thank you. Disclosures of interest. Council and staff, please indicate in relation to any interest you may need to declare, what report or item you are declaring an interest in, whether the interest is pecuniary or non-pecuniary, and what is the nature of the interest. Do we have anybody with a conflict? Thank you very much. We have no public presentations and no one has registered for the public forum. So we'll go to item 2, confirmation of minutes of the meeting held, the General Committee meeting held on the 12th of August 2024. Councillor Downing, Councillor Watt. Councillor Downing? Anybody? All those in favour? Thank you. Passed. Right, number 3. 3.1, the rent of enclosed and dedicated roads adjustment to our revenue policy. Sorry, Councillor Downing. Yeah, and Councillor Kiss. Councillor Downing?
Yes. Although it means that there's a reduction of 18,222 in our income for the 24-25 financial year, we've discussed this one previously at a meeting about the rented costs and the increases that were significant after the land valuations. So we've just drawn it back to be amended it to fall in line with our rate pegging, which is fairer. So the staff have picked this up, which is really great, which is great for our community. So the change to the revenue policy was advertised as required and no submissions were received. So it just means that we need to endorse it, and because that's the way it goes, and I'd like to say that we should do that and actually see that the ratepayers we're listening and we're reflecting our decisions on what they need.
Thank you. Councillor Kiss.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I totally concur with what Councillor Downing has just said. In addition, I mean, to me, this points out that we do need to be on top of our policies. It shows that we do actually need to change things occasionally. Some things might not suit the current climate. Obviously, it was suitable at the time when it was made. And yes, just to reiterate that this will give our residents greater stability and predictability in their annual rent of their enclosed roads. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else like to comment? Okay, write a reply. Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you, carried. Okay, donation 3.2, donation request from the Lachlan Valley Railway Society Cooperative Limited. Thank you, Councillor Watt. Who said that? Sorry, thank you, Ruth. Councillor Hagan. Councillor Watt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm very happy to support this request from Lachlan Valley Railway Society. LVR are a fantastic community group who give up their blood, sweat and tears into rebuilding the depot as it stands now, and are currently fundraising literally sleeper by sleeper to rebuild some of the track. And I think us supporting them in sealing the entryway will both make it better for our community in attending LVR events such as the one they've articulated here, but they often do community events. They do parties, they do train rides and tea and scones on their meal cart, and are a great attraction to people inside and outside of our community.
Councillor Fagan.
Just to reiterate some things Councillor Watt said, this is a great organisation. They are very, very they do a lot of work in the community, and they're celebrating their 60th anniversary, which is great, and it's fantastic to see that. Although we don't have any access for them to go outside Cowra at this stage, it is great that they are so passionate and really do so much for our community, even though they're only 5 kilometres in town. They've only got 5 kilometres to send their trains on, but which is a bit of a pity, but we've always supported them, and I'm very pleased to be able to do that this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fagan. Anybody else like to comment? Councillor Kiss.
Mr. Mayor, this might need to be taken on notice, but I was just a bit curious, and obviously I'm very supportive of this, like very worthy cause. I noted that on page 19 of our agenda that it says the total estimated cost of the project is $3,000, whereas the quote from council is $550. Curious as to what the additional cost might have been. But in any event, I'd still support the $550. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to comment? Grant, Director.
Through the chair, the council, the event we understand is $3,000, and they're just looking for that $500 to fix that particular road problem.
Okay, thank you. All happy? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Right, a reply. Councillor Watt. Technicality. Okay, I'll put the motion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. I think you passed. Okay. Whilst we're on that, 3.3, our risk management policy. Can I have a mover? Councillor Watt.
I'd like to move an amended motion, please, or a new motion.
Right. Do we need a seconder before we have the amendment? Or
So everyone has the proposed amendment in their pink folders. The proposed amendment, but there is one change. So the final point, number 5, I will remove and speak to that in my moving of the motion. The proposed motion is that the risk management policy be adopted by council with the following amendments. 1, reviews required annually. 2, addition to 6.2 of an unacceptable risk, in quotes, could cause generational inequity through the unequal distribution of resources, opportunities and outcomes across generations. Amendment 3, to amend table 1 under 6.4 line financial risks to read as below, which is adding, presume you don't want me to read all of those, adding risk generation inequity to financial risks. Number 4, amend item 9 training to read, council will embed the principles of risk management into all training sessions and work with training providers to develop content that is tailored to the needs of the organisation. 9.2, all staff will receive basic risk management awareness training. 9.3, which is an addition, any safety sensitive staff, key staff who are responsible for managing risks rated high and extreme, and management staff will receive additional training. 9.4, all councillors will receive risk management training at least once per term. And 9.5, refresher courses will be identified and undertaken as required.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that amendment? Thank you, Councillor Fagan. Would you like to speak?
Do I get an opportunity to speak now? Yeah, I think.
Yes.
Yeah,
you
because I was
speak
just reading
first.
that out.
Yeah.
Perfect. Sorry, you were looking at Ruth, so I wasn't sure. As we've all articulated in the email, this adds a few important pieces in my opinion. The document itself refers to annual reviews of the risk appetite and our broader risk management. So I propose amending the document to be consistent in that nature. In discussion with the director, there is generally our policies are reviewed every 4 years, and we may transition to that through the period of time. But as this is a new policy and an integral policy, I think we should have that as 1 year for the next couple of years at least. In relation to item amendments 2 and 3, I'm proposing that we include generational inequity as a risk that we consider. We are often making decisions about our infrastructure, about our loans that we're taking on, about the financial management of rates received, grants received, and this can have long-term impacts for our community. We know now, as we'll discuss in the investment report, that we are currently sitting with over $10 million of debt on decisions made in the past. I'm not suggesting that they weren't necessarily good decisions, but I believe when we're making the decisions about how we spend our money, we should be considering what that potential interest payments over the period of the loan and what that potential cost is putting on future generations. We don't always have a choice necessarily in what's happening at the time. Occasionally there are great grant opportunities to take forth, and often I think we take those on thinking that it's a free project, but we need to be clear that there are ongoing maintenance costs in that, and it may just be about when that maintenance is being scheduled. We've had discussions here, and I've had discussions at the annual local government conference with various federal government bodies about the fact that when we receive a chunk of grant money in one hit in response to a natural disaster, that may often mean that a lot of maintenance is required down the line at the same time, and that either we or the government needs to consider how we manage that risk going forward, because essentially, communities that are hit are still required to pay for those elements. There's been some ways that we've considered this without our policy before. Earlier in the year, Council committed to spending the increase we've received in our roads funding on upgrading the quality of a number of our roads to tarring a number of those roads. And as we discussed at that time, that would reduce the ongoing costs and increase the longevity of those items. While that may seem is a higher ticket item in the moment of what we're spending on those roads, by entering these items around generational inequality, I think that we can make sure we're considering all of these items on each piece that we do. Hopefully the section on training is quite self-explanatory. Training is obviously important, and as this document refers to both council as the organisation as well as council as the elected body, I think it's important that councillors receive risk management training as well, as this is a rapidly changing space, and we need to make sure that everyone's on a equal playing field when they get here. I had originally included in the information I circulated to councillors about the addition of a glossary of core terms, and in conversation with the acting director and the new director, we've discussed that we might take that off board to do a little bit more work on pulling that together, because there isn't standardised definitions, and add that in later on. That's in regards to my amendments. I'll be quick, but hopefully everyone in the room is aware of the importance of having these overarching risk management policies. It's not something we've had in place strategically and specifically before, but as we've discussed many times over the last year, as ARIC has been expanded and we've considered our position, I think it's a really integral one in what we do as councillors. And having that standard across the board means that each staff member and each manager has the same agreement and the same understanding when they're making their decisions. And that gives us as councillors a lot of security in knowing what's happening, but it also gives our community an understanding of what we're doing. Risk management is something that in the private space is quite ordinary now. It's something that everyone does all the time. And it's disappointing that it's taken so long for this to happen here, but I'm really excited that the steps are in place to have it to go forth over this council period for the development of the risk management policy, the risk management plan, which is in draft at the moment as an internal document, the expansion of ARIC, and the consideration of a broader risk management, risk register, risk matrix, and a number of other items in that space. While some may roll their eyes when we talk about risk management as more bureaucracy, it has a real impact on our community, the safety of the services that we provide, the safety of the staff that we employ, and the ongoing viability of councils and our ability to deliver for our community. So I hope everyone in the room will support it, and we'll also make sure that when we adopt this tonight, it doesn't become the end of our conversation about risk management, but it's something we address every day. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Watt. Councillor Fagan?
I'd just like to point out that this is actually a really important document, as Councillor Watt has said, and it's also something that we have been working on for quite a number of years, but it's great to see it's actually come to fruition. The other thing is that a generational inequity is such a new buzzword, and I'm happy that we've got the generational people in the room to be able to bring it up, because it's we've been talking about not putting too much debt on our future generations the whole time I've been here, 16 years. So we've always been very aware that what we decide today will have an impact on what's happening in the future. The name generational inequity is quite a new one, so we'll just say that that's the latest thing that happens in risk management or in anything. But the council has been very financially aware of what we do and how we do it. But I think this is a great document because it puts it all together, and I think we haven't had that opportunity before. And risk management is such a, as Councillor Watt said, is such a really important part of corporate life these days. And the more we become corporatised, the more important it becomes. So I'm quite very supportive of this policy, and thank Councillor Watt for her diligence in changing some of the things which I think are quite, succinct and bring it together a bit better. Thank you.
Councillor Kiss.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do reiterate this is a very important document. I appreciate what Councillor Watt has put into it. I think she really has tried to bring in some, I suppose, affirm some of the more poignant points in here. I don't know that it's all totally necessary. However, if these changes bring comfort to my colleagues, I'm very happy to support them, only in as much as I think intergenerational inequity, it is a buzzword. My feeling is that it would actually come under long-term financial sustainability. So it would have been something that would have taken into consideration before, but I don't think it's going to harm to put it in there. And as we said, it's a buzzword. So if that's going to make people look twice, then I'm quite happy to support that. Look at review required annually. Why not? It certainly does mention in there that we do need to be reviewing in different areas annually. So I'm very happy to support that. I did want to also emphasise though that yes, it is important, and I acknowledge Councillor Watt for putting in that all councillors receive the risk management training that we actually already do. So just to reiterate that this is actually happening, that the local government regulation does ensure that induction is delivered within the first 6 months to risk management. So it is in there. I don't want anyone to think that we go without training, which is probably even more reason to actually have it in our risk management policy here. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Downing?
I'd just like to say that the generational inequity is probably not a buzzword. It's just a new name for a concept, and it is now a new acceptable name, as in disability spaces, as in lots of different things over the years. So I don't think it's just a buzzword, and I don't think we're using it in this document as a buzzword. I think we're using it to explain very succinctly about the things that we probably have, but putting it together in a very modern and future-looking way.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Wright?
Yeah, I'd like to see this written into the plan, where I want to replace things properly. It says to review every 12 months. Well, risk management's an ongoing thing, and often it has to be reviewed before 12 months because something might have happened or regulation might have changed that determines that we have to operate in a different format. So if you say it's just got to be reviewed annually, I might mean you might look at it every 12 months, where I think staff need to be looking, and they have been looking at things as they occur in the high risk areas. And it appears that the risk management schedule that ARIC operates under is not deemed to be up to standard. You want these things put forward. From what I can believe, and I haven't been here long, but I think any staff training, it generally begins with the risk management side of things, and people are learning to take to take care, and they've probably got to talk to their older employees that are a bit hesitant to operate totally up to to what the risk management schedule says, because under Work Cover Acts, there's no such thing as an accident. Someone's going to be responsible, and so staff have got to ensure that they're looking after each other and not just accept that the crew leader is the one that they follow. As far as generational inequity or equity, this has been talked about for 20 or 30 years, or even 50 or 60 years. It comes under the premise that you put a sewerage system in to connect a sewerage system to the town, and if you want generational inequity, and you're doing it now, the people think that the people that own the houses now that are getting the septic control or the water or whatever, the garbage collected, should all pay it in that term, that you don't take debt out. And all the debt that we have borrowed all has to be put into the 10-year financial plan and how that will affect it before we make our judgment whether we go ahead with it. And I successfully argued about when we put the recycling machine in at the MRF, we were going to finance a $600,000 investment over 30 years and $60,000 a year repayment, and we'd pay $1.2 million worth of interest. I did get it back to 16 years or something, but so I think we might have adjusted to some of the risk that was there and so forth. But it's sort of inferring that we don't do things for the benefit of the future, because the people, the future generations, are going to get the benefit of our sewerage, our water, our roads, a bridge, or whatever we build. They get it now and into the future. So some of the hard decisions have to be made now, and we explain to people why we're doing it. Anyway, that's my little bit. You probably can't put it in. I'm not going to speak against the amendment, but I went to a transport meeting once in Toowoomba, and the fellow said that should operate under the local government clause of 167, and he was asked what was that, and he said it was common sense.
Anybody else would like to make a comment? Okay, well, the amendment is right of reply. Yeah.
I do have something to say this time. I'm not just being cheeky. So
Just a point of order or question, the amendment is not an amendment, it's the
it's
motion
the
now.
motion.
Well, it's
I thought it was
we
the
didn't-
amendment, it'll
No,
become
I
the motion
moved a
afterwards.
motion.
No, we
No,
didn't
I
move
moved
the
the
motion.
motion.
The
No one
motion
moved the
wasn't
motion.
moved, it is the motion.
This is the motion?
Yes.
Okay.
No,
Yes.
I'm not. Yeah, I
'Cause,
just.
yeah, so if someone had moved the motion to begin with and then I moved an amendment, then it would be, but I moved the motion, I moved this motion first.
I thought you moved the amendment first.
You can't move the amendment until the motion's been put.
Well, in that case, who moved and seconded
Myself
the motion?
and Ruth.
I've got you and Ruth, but I assume that was the amendment. That was the motion.
It is,
Right.
so,
we'll vote on the amendment.
no, so what we're saying is if I'm the first person to move and I say that I am moving a different motion and I am moving the motion that I read, that
Yep.
becomes the motion.
That is the motion. Okay.
If people disagree with that, they can vote against this
And
and
then
then
we
we
go
can
back.
discuss the
Right.
motion. Yeah,
Okay. The motion, I'll put it,
no, I have a right of reply.
you've got the right to reply.
Yes. Generation inequity as a term has been around since 1974 and was coined by economist James Tobin. So it's definitely not a generation. It's not a buzzword of the moment. It's something that's been in my vocabulary since I was 17, which is 15 years ago. The terminology that James Tobin spoke about was that the trustees of endowed institutions are the guardians of the future against claims of the present. Their task in managing the endowment is to preserve equity amongst generations. I think the articulation from Councillor Wright is a really important one in how we approach generational inequity as a terminology. I think often when people hear it from someone my age, they think that we're coming at you and we're angry at you. Occasionally we are, but it's actually also about saying we may need to spend more money today to save money in the future, or to give people services and facilities for the future. As in the example that I spoke about our decision earlier in the year to spend, instead of fixing, say, 50 roads for the next 5 years, we fixed, this is obviously not the accurate information, but essentially made the decision instead to fix 5 roads for the next 20 years. And the implications of that for our future in terms of what we're spending, those are the kind of conversations you have about generational inequity. If we were to make that decision just about our term of council or just about that budget cycle, we would choose the lower cost, which would put costs going forward. But what this is putting in place is not suggesting that no one's taken these things into consideration before, but making that really clear for every person in council who makes the decision or brings a report to us that they should consider these items. Thank you.
Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. Passed. Thank you. Okay, 3.4, council's fraud and corruption policy. Someone like to move that we accept that? $34. I think we're all learning with the laptop. So I got mine this afternoon and I'm struggling. Thank you, Councillor Kiss. Seconder, Councillor Downing. Councillor Kiss.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This policy is simply stating that fraud and corruption are incompatible with council values, as we understand. It says to outline the approach council will take to prevent, mitigate harm from, discipline and investigate instances of fraud. It has been recommended to us by our Manex, and it aligns with the local government practices as well as ICAC. Council has been looking through and identifying any gaps that it might have in its policies, and definitely this one needs to fill the gap. Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Downing.
Yep. I just had a little question. Is it part of the Australian Standard for Fraud and Corruption Control, like is considered the benchmark for Australian organisations? Does it actually fit with that as well, or do we not have to do that as well?
We have borrowed, I suppose, looked at a lot of other policies around other councils around the place, so I'd have to take that particular question on notice, but we've basically borrowed, as we do in local government, look at policies around the place. And just, I suppose, a little bit of background is that this is codifying what we basically have been doing for many years.
That was
it's
my
just
next
the policy
point.
has been missing.
This is just drawing it all together.
Correct.
Yeah, so we're already doing those things, but it actually sets our objectives formally and really clearly, and I think that's a really good thing, so I'm happy to support the creation of the policy. And I actually think it will be a sensible addition to the risk management and our policy, and formally cover any such activities. So I think it's a great policy, and if we can make it stronger, even better.
Would anybody else like to? Councillor Watt.
I've got a few questions. They may be referenced in the policy and I haven't picked them up. So happy for that to be the response. What is the action, or is there a part of the policy that covers if the Director of Corporate Services or the General Manager are the one in question?
Could you just repeat that again, please?
There's a number of elements in the policy that talk about reporting up to if there's a concern of corruption or fraud. However, that process is essentially to report to the DCS and the General Manager. What's the process if the concern is about one of those two staff members?
I'll have to take that one on notice too,
Okay.
because I think that would come under the code of conduct for
Yep.
senior staff.
Yeah, okay. I guess, yeah, I feel like it should probably be reflected in this so that, because this would be something that our staff would read and for them to have that guideline on what to do in that situation. And another question, which I think may be what you've just suggested, of how this policy interacts with councillors. Are they bound by this policy, or are they bound by a separate part of the Act or OLG?
They would be bound by this policy as well.
This policy. That's all I've got.
Anybody else? Councillor Horton?
Thank you. Just a quick question. In terms of trying to encapsulate and strengthen it perhaps a little bit, for example, page 41, item 8, examples of fraudulent and corrupt activity. If we can add a line in there, something like may include but not limited to, the risk sometimes if the rubber hits the road in a particular HR issue, is that someone will come back, if they're being held to account, someone might come back and say, oh, but it doesn't say anywhere that I couldn't do that. So if you have a catch-all phrase, it allows you that to counter that argument.
Sure. If the mover and seconder are happy with that.
Okay. Anybody else like to comment? I'd just like to say that at the ARIC committee we deal with a lot of this, and council has changed its purchasing order procedure to exactly prevent a lot of this. So we are constantly improving and upgrading our systems. Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Passed, thank you. Did you want to write a reply? Did you want to write a reply?
If I may, just briefly, I would have thanked
Certainly,
Councillor
Councillor
Horton.
Kiss, would you like to write a reply?
Thank you. Would have thanked Councillor Horton for his pickup on that area. It was quite diligent. Well done.
Okay, thank you. I will put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you. Right, 3.5, investment and financial report. Councillor Watt. Councillor Fagan. Councillor Watt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A good report as always. We have two in front of us today of August and September due to the council elections. The average interest rate in both August and September overall is above the average market rates, which is fantastic. There's sufficient funds available for day-to-day operations going forward. There's a significant improvement in our outstanding rates with a reduction of $400,000 between August and September in the outstanding rates, and the percentage of rates outstanding continues to be lower than the past 3 financial years, which is also great to see. As with the current financial climate, it's definitely something we've got our eye on, that our outstanding loans continue to be paid on time. However, as I raise each meeting, our loans interest rates continue to be high, with a number of long-term loans holding high interest rates around 8%, and it's something we should consider making amendments and to our loans to reduce this issue.
Councillor Fagan.
Thank you. I think taking on, it is a very good report. Thank you very much. I think taking on from Councillor Watt, I think we've looked at paying out those loans early, and it hasn't been hasn't been financially viable for us, but it might be something the new director would take up, look at paying out some of those loans, because some of them are quite high. But I'd also like to say it's great to see the rates coming in, and to remind everyone that we don't have $40 million in spending money. It actually is only $8 million in cash, and we have to get through it every month and every week. So we do not have that. Most of it's in reserves for particular projects and particular things that council is actually doing. So just to remind everyone, we don't have all that money. It actually is already spent. So and it's a very good report, and thank you.
Thank you. I don't want to rain on everyone's parade, but would the director like to make a correction to the report?
Yes, through the chair. Councillors, item 10 in both those reports, you have two reports there, the 2 months. The council rates, levy, arrears and recovery action, you'll see the amount collected there. We have a software glitch, which we've just recently discovered. That figure is not correct. We're trying to correct that.
What page you talking?
Well, I'm on the iPad. It's item 10 on the report, so council rate, levy, arrears and recovery action.
Yeah, got it. Page 52.
It's different page number on there. I think you're a different page number on my iPad.
52. Yeah, both of them. Are they both wrong?
They're both incorrect. There's a software problem there. We're trying to correct that. We've been talking with the people, and hopefully we'll get that fixed up shortly. The graphs are correct, so you can see the rundown of the collection there, but those figures, there was a magical collection of 600,000 within the space of a month, so it's absolutely incorrect. We'll get that fixed up shortly.
What are the correct figures?
We don't know at this stage. We're trying to find that out, but the software is just no problem at this stage.
What was the figure in the July report?
That was in the previous agenda. I'll have to go back to that.
Okay. Do we have any ballpark figure?
I'll have to get back to you on that.
Right.
I'll take one notice. It's a software issue. But you will see from the graphs there that the collections there are going down. So it's a normal collection rate.
On the graph that's up the top, which is the comparison rate of progress for prior years, it's in 4 colours or 5 colours. Yep. And then the next one is the council rate levy, and that's in like different colours. Can we make it the same colour so we know what we're looking at each time? I know that's really random, but can we keep it colour coded? So dark blue is this year.
You're looking for consistency.
Yeah. Just easier to read.
Yeah, we can do that.
Cool. Thank you.
Anybody else? Now that they,
Just a question.
yes,
Question.
councillor, right?
With this software problem, is that in the new software we purchased or the transfer from the old software that we're upgrading to the new software?
It's just happened. We don't know why. We're just looking at it.
Anybody else? Councillor Horton?
Thank you. Sorry, just on that note then, I noticed there's quite a variation between the balance, and this might be fine. Item 3, general fund balance. When you go from month to month, we go from 3.8 million in August to 755,000 in September. So I just wondered why that might be.
It's probably just based on the accounts that were paid within those periods.
Page 48 for the August report and page 56 for the September report. So it's item number 3.
Sorry, which one are you looking at?
Apologies. Page 48, the chart at the bottom, which is source of funds. The last entry on that looks like it's June 24 rather than August.
Do we know what we're?
Well, I think maybe let's not note the report because it's not accurate
Um,
and delay this motion. Can I move an amendment to my own motion that we delay this report until
That's
technical
correct, yeah.
issues are resolved?
More than happy, more than
You're
happy.
happy with that?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so you're both happy that we get this fixed up and bring it back? Okay,
Well, no, what I'm suggesting is that we defer this report because I don't want to note a report that's inaccurate. Yeah.
so when the report is accurate, that it comes back to council.
Yes.
That's everybody happy with that?
Well, when it comes back, it should be accurate.
Yes.
To our two heads of Director of Corporate Services, could someone read that back to us of what we've put as our motion?
What I scribbled down is that consideration of the report be deferred until data is updated.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, through the month. Yep. There's already
Right.
two there.
Both the mover and the second are happy with that?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll put that to the council. All
Aye.
those in favour?
Aye.
Righto. 3.6, the section 355 draft committee minutes of the Cowra Regional Art Gallery Advisory Committee. Someone like to move?
Yeah, I'll move it.
Councillor Downing and what? Thank you. Councillor Downing.
Just to say that this is a really small but really busy committee. So whoever gets this one's going to be busy. They're the minutes for the July and August. So they've held exhibitions capturing the home front and a heritage exhibition for the Cowra Breakout anniversary. And they had longer opening hours, and I think that everyone who visited town for that occasion had a look and loved it. So that's really awesome. They've got an exhibition about Art Express that's on, and now, pardon? Yeah, and then they've in these minutes, they're planning for the Kayleen Art Award, but that's already been on and it's on display now. So if anyone wants to go and have a look, it'd be great.
Councillor Watt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just briefly to thank former Councillor Delbo and the Gallery Director for clarifying why the Friends of the Gallery account didn't receive and doesn't receive interest, which is noted at the bottom of the August meetings. Appreciate that response because we've been asking that for a little while.
Anyone else like to comment? Okay, write a reply. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Right, thank you. Passed. Righto, 4.1 DA 63 2024 Lot 1 DP 168201 15 Somerset Street, Cowra, a two-lot subdivision and the construction of two dwellings lodged by M.L. Kutali. Someone like to move? Seconder? Councillor Horton, thank you. Councillor Fagan?
This is a plan for a two-lot subdivision in Somerset Street, which has also got some other activity. It's good to see that end of town starting to move. And it looks like it's been very well assessed by our staff. It is two lots. It's been given to us because there's variation in the control plan, setback of 4 metres and street frontage of 3.53. It's not a very big setback, not a very big change. It meets everything else. It is actually a very good development in a very low economic, well, lower. Oh no, it's not. It's a very good development in a part of town that hasn't had a lot of development. I think that's very important, and I think it's great that we actually are able to do this, and it's very a good development. So we're getting two houses for the price for the same one that's already there, and I'm happy to move it.
Thank you. Councillor Watt? Oh, sorry, Horton. Sorry, wrong page. Councillor Horton.
That's okay. Thank you. Yes, fully support Councillor Fagan's comments. I think also in the context of the immediate environment, there are other smaller dwellings in that area, so it wouldn't. It certainly, to my mind, wouldn't look out of place. And more broadly, obviously we're in and will be potentially for some time pretty challenging circumstances in terms of housing more broadly, not just here, but in a lot of places around the country. So any little thing that we can do to generate activity and generate more dwellings for people, I think is a good thing. So I'd absolutely support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Horton. Councillor Watt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Unfortunately, I'm speaking against the DA that has been provided tonight. The DA has asked for 3 variations to the DCP and 3 variations to the setbacks. I believe that the rear setback being reduced from a minimum in our DCP of 5 metres to a minimum to 1.4 metre setback is inappropriate. It's not consistent with the area that it is in. If you have a look at the map of the surrounding area, all of the houses surrounding have a significant backyard and are well exceeding the setback of 5 metres, especially because this is a corner lot. The setback of both of the houses, in fact, are right next to the side of the house on Somerset Street, which means that there's essentially 1.4 metres between the back of their house and the side of the house next door. I think if this had have come forward with perhaps 2 of the requested setbacks, perhaps to the front and the side, it would have been very different. But this application is asking for substantial changes in the setbacks and substantially larger than our plans have articulated. I very much hear my colleague, Councillor Horton, in the importance of having more housing. But I think it's essential that as we go down that path, we make sure that it is quality housing that's set up for the future. The proposal here is to build 2 dwellings with 3 bedrooms with living area implied to be built for families. And there is very small outdoor space. There is no backyard. There is a very small area for for a clothesline. It looks like the clothesline that might be in a single dwelling for an older person. And I just don't think that it's appropriate to have this much of an encroachment in that space. I think that they can reconsider and come up with something that is less of an increase. To have a 4 metre change to the back rear setting is very significant in my mind, and I'll be voting against the DA.
Okay, would anybody else like to comment?
Just like to ask a question, is
Councillor Wright.
this a vacant block at present, or they got to shift a house or something?
Through the chair, what they'll be doing is demolishing the existing dwelling and constructing 2 new dwellings. Yeah. They've already, through the chair, they've already had consent for the demolition of the dwelling, and it has been demolished.
Would anybody else like to comment? Councillor Speechley.
Thank you. I'd just like to actually agree with Councillor Watt. I had some concerns around that back boundary changing. And I think the comments around the 3 bedrooms would be family oriented and where is the space for the family to be outdoors is valid. Another concern that I had related to the retaining wall at the rear on that boundary with a 1.8 metre high colour-bond fence on it, how much light would actually be available to the rooms facing that northern boundary. So I think it's a valid consideration.
Does anybody else like Councillor Kiss?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In fact, what Councillor Watt had suggested wasn't something that I'd picked up to begin with, but I do agree with what you're saying about it. The 3 bedrooms you would typically be as a family. My thought is more to do with the accessibility. I understand the need for smaller premises, especially closer to town, but when I consider those needs, I look at also longer term accessibility. So perhaps ramps entering into places, larger hallways, wider rooms, for, you know, people to be able to live in place. And that's what I noticed was missing here. You know, I could overlook the fact that there really is no yard if you are considering that this is because of low maintenance, because it's potentially is for more aged people. So that in itself was enough to sway me. Having listened to Councillor Watt's arguments, I would now be saying as well, like that there's just too much inconsistency in it, in what is this house actually designed to do. So unfortunately, I'll be speaking against this one as well. Thank you.
Another question, please. Where the back fence is going on top of the cut area, does the setback measured from the eave or from the wall? Because the eave's 500 mils, and you take that off the setback, which appears to be the wall, you've cut half your setback nearly. Someone could climb on top of the 6-foot fence and be on top of your roof.
Through the chair, the setbacks are calculated from the point on the property boundary to the first point of the construction of that dwelling. So in this case, it would be the eaves and gutters of the house.
I think this is very, very important that we get this right. Would anybody else got any questions or? Okay, right.
I'll ask Larissa if I could ask her. So the assessment that you did actually felt that this was sufficient. The backyard was sufficient. The lighting, the sun on the backyard was sufficient. That it actually had the setbacks were similar to what was in the street already.
Through the chair, the town planners provided me with a report that I have reviewed and considered that the development was acceptable for what was proposed.
Thank you.
I'm supportive of it.
Thank you.
Councillor Watt?
Thank you. Was there a sun analysis done?
I'll have to take that on notice. If there is, I will get it through to you.
Okay.
Just a question there on that is, with the sun analysis, if this goes through basic planning regulations, the sun must be measured then, how much heat goes onto the house, and I presume that's why there's only 2 small windows on the northern wall.
Through the chair, they have had to provide a basics assessment report, which has now been upgraded from what was previously a 5-star rating assessment to a 7-star. So they have to demonstrate compliance with that.
Councillor Downing?
So the reason for the very minimal back setback, which seems to be the issue because the front ones aren't being discussed, so I'm assuming it's the back one that everyone thinks is inappropriate. The decision that they have made is so they can build a 3-bedroom property on that. Is that correct?
Through the chair, I'm assuming so. We don't actually ask them their decision behind the design.
Yep.
That is up to them to come to council and prove that the design is worthy of being determined.
Right. And so the planning staff thought that it was worthy because we have the report.
That's
Yeah.
correct. And that was
And
supportive of the variation.
Just to clarify Councillor Kiss's point, is there anything within this DA that means they have to have ramps or wider hallways or anything like that? That's not legislation in New South Wales, is it?
It's not legislation in New South Wales, is it?
No. Okay.
But
thank
we
you.
are pushing it.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else?
Sorry, just
Councillor Watt?
if the room will indulge me, in the Cowra report there is an articulation that is why, that the reason they are applying for all 3 of the changes to the setback is both so that they can have a 3-bedroom house but also have large open space in the living and family areas throughout the house.
Councillor Downing? Okay. Councillor Fagan, right a reply.
This is a two dwelling houses in our town that a builder is putting his money out to build on a block of land which is in an area which has a lot of small blocks of land and a lot of people living there. It's suitable for that area. It's suitable for that block. The council staff, who are very qualified and have gone through a lot of obviously all the details, have decided that they would recommend this for us to be passed. We are not qualified, and I'm not sure who's going to live in the house, and I really don't care, just as long as somebody does, and it's going to be a family, maybe, or maybe a single person, or maybe two people. We do not have that knowledge, and I don't think we need it. Many people these days don't want a large backyard in the back of their house. They're actually very happy with a small backyard that they can put their washing out on. And a lot of people these days, unfortunately, live in their houses and not outside. They have air conditioners and they live in their lounge rooms and they do all sorts of things, but they don't actually go outside. So the conception that that we all live in 1 acre blocks and have 3-bedroom houses with large 700 metre or larger blocks of land is probably outdated. And these days, people actually quite like to have a larger house on a smaller block. I'm not one of those, but there are a lot of people who do like that. So I think it'd be really remiss of us if we actually deny these people and this developer the opportunity to build 2 new houses in Cowra. I just think it's not a council decision that we should be taking lightly. We should be taking it seriously, but it's not in our remit to say no to the planning staff and the recommendation that's in front of us. I think we really are required. As I said, I'm not going to live there, and I don't think anyone else in this room is going to live there.
Can I have a point of order, please?
Yeah.
This comes to us because items that are suggested to change the DCP are of the subjective choice of council. The Councillor Fagan is incorrect that we are not qualified. This is an explicit requirement of councillors to make subjective decisions where there is a requested change to the DCP.
Councillor Fagan.
I agree with you, but I do think that this is something that has gone through our planning department, which have experts in this field and are very qualified, and we would be remiss of us if we denied these people the opportunity to build a new house because we think the backyard's too small. So I'm hoping that other people will support me. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to put the motion after you, Tony and Cheryl. When we have a DA, it is a show of hands. Hands have to be shown. So, all those in favour? 4. All those against? 4.
You have to use your casting vote.
I'm going to back the staff, and I will do the motion. The motion is passed. Okay, 4.2, development application 542024, lot 2 DP 746612, 25 Porters Mount, demolition of an existing shed and construction of a new shed lodged by W. Loader. Can I have a mover? Councillor Watt. Seconder. Councillor Speechley, thank you. Councillor Watt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is a very sound proposal to come forward, and the request here I think should be part of the consideration of council's planning review at the current time. Many of our community are caravanners. Many people who want to move to Cowra are caravanners, and the proposal here in part is so that they can have a caravan in their shed and that they can have a caravan and be safe in standing on the step as they get out of the caravan. They've also made the request in order to store machinery and trucks for their business. which while this wouldn't be acceptable inside the town itself, Porters Mount Road is a large lot residential area on a very close to a main road, and I think it's entirely appropriate for them to store that machinery there. I imagine, though I haven't driven past myself, that machinery is probably currently stored outside and would probably be more appealing on the eye if it was stored within a shed. Thank you.
Councillor Speechley.
I support this one. I think that the replacement of the shed with a larger one, there doesn't seem to be any encroachments from shadow or anything else. Visually, from the road, it's going to have very minimal impact. So I think it's a solid proposal.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Right, a reply? Not required. All those in favour? Passed, unanimous. Thank you. Okay, 4.3 and Cowra Development Control Plan 21 amended Part E.4 Urban Village Development addition to the Valley View Estate Planning Controls.
I'd like to move a motion with something different, if I can find it. What number page?
It's on page 190
Yeah,
and
gotta find it. Yeah,
it's 89 to
in the development control plan, yeah.
283. Paragraph is E.4 6.2. You're looking for? The paragraph states that at least 75% of landscaped area must be planted with Indigenous species.
I'm moving the motion with the deletion of that that statement or that
Clause?
clause. Sorry. Yeah, I've got it. I'm just trying to find the actual. Anyway, went on. Sorry, forever, isn't it? 190 it is. Keeps going ahead, jumping. Okay, it's I'd like to move that motion with the amended clause in at E.4.6.2 at least 75% of landscape areas must be planted with Indigenous species. So need a seconder.
Councillor Kiss, thank you.
Speak to the motion is that I've read this and it's really a very good document. It's what we've been waiting for. I'm sure Councillor Watt's very pleased with it, and unless she had something else to say. But at this stage, this is a bit of onerous. I've spoken to the director, and the 75% of landscaped areas of native trees is quite a very a large amount, and also very hard for our owners and the original owners and the new owners to actually do. And I'm sure our staff do know it's onerous on the staff to be able to go and check how many trees and how many plants and how many Manchurian pears are being planted at one place. And I think it would be very detrimental to our relationship with those new owners and with the old owners. So I'm asking that we delete that 75% landscaped area with Indigenous species.
Thank you. Councillor Kiss.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that was very well detected by Councillor Fagan as well. And I just wanted to clarify, if I may, that these design controls, although they've been prompted following the refusal of a multi-dwelling housing, that the variation would not necessarily prevent another such DA. Thank you.
Through the chair, that is correct. The current permissibilities within that zone still will allow for medium density dwelling developments.
Councillor Watt.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Sorry you're sick of my voice, Councillor Fagan. I do have more to say, unfortunately. I am speaking against the amended motion that Councillor Fagan has put forward, but as I'm sure everyone in the room knows, very supportive of the general policy. So I will speak to both sides in case the amendment gets up. Firstly, about the overall policy. This is a very welcome amendment. We all know that this has been an ongoing issue for council, something that has been very costly for council in our legal battles around the area. We developed the Valley View Estate in a specific way to fit with the Peace Precinct that is next door and that is continuing to develop, and to ensure that we don't encroach on the visibility from that Peace Precinct, and that it continues to be somewhere that shows and is a place for us to share the story of peace and reconciliation that Cowra has led. This has come up due to issues in the past where a marketing material was provided at the point of sale to all the current owners of land in Tokyo Terrace and Seoul Street, and they were under the impression that it would be implemented into council planning policies, but they were not. I think it's a very good point that we are here today, and that is one of the reasons why I'm speaking against the amended motion. The line about 75% Indigenous planting was in those marketing materials, and as we've discovered through the many representations that the owners and purchasers of Valley View Estate have put forward, they followed those marketing materials to a T. So I would be very surprised if those up there hadn't followed those requirements. As someone who is currently working through a development at the moment at the airport, we are also required to utilise Indigenous trees. It has increased cost to us, but that's something that's being imposed across the remit. There's also a really specific reason why we may have a change in this Valley View character estate as opposed to other areas for using more Indigenous plants. And that is because it is the continuation of the Peace Precinct, it is continuation of that format, and we want these areas to fit in quite consistently with that character space that it's in. We are making an adjustment in reducing the amount of space in that Peace Precinct by putting in this housing, and we want that transition from the Peace Precinct to housing to be more seamless. As everyone knows, up at the Peace Precinct, it is largely Indigenous flora and fauna. It is not something that we manicure to a lawn. It is let to grow quite naturally outside of the paths that exist, and that is for a really important reason, and therefore I think it's important that we continue that forward. We don't want there to be a real disconnect, and there is a reason. We are not just creating this character assessment in order to stop a DA, and I think it's really important that that isn't how it's seen by our community who are outside of the Valley View Estate. But as you can read in the marketing materials, and if anyone doesn't have access to them, I can circulate them. It was really clearly articulated in that document, and there was a vision provided to people who purchased that in that area that they were buying part of Cowra's history, and they were being part of the Peace Precinct. They were buying a particular type of housing that attracts many people to Cowra, and that is a particular area that is quite well sought after to live in. And they all went with good faith and followed every letter of the marketing material there, and that would include the 75% Indigenous flora and fauna. I think it's very useful as well to put this in place because that is Indigenous flora and fauna is set up for our climate, and we know that there's going to be less maintenance in that, there's going to be more hardiness in that, and it will continue to look good. And until we develop stage 2 of Valley View Estate, there will continue to be natural flora and fauna in that space, so there will be consistency until we move forward with stage 2. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else like to comment? Councillor Wright.
The question first. I've never done a DA for a house, but you seem to have got to put in a landscaping plan, I think, to be approved by council. Is that right?
Through the chair, no, it's not correct. We don't require landscape plans for single dwellings. It's only for multi-dwelling developments that we do. Yeah. Single dwellings we do not.
But industrial areas we do.
That's correct, because it's a larger, more substantial style of development.
All right. Thank you. I just thinking, oh, well, it's got to be 70% Indigenous planting. Now, I presume lawn would be one planting. So if you didn't sow a kangaroo grass or some other grass, wallaby grass or something, and you put kikuyu in, that'd be the first one. And so if you put native shrubs or a tree in, you could have 7 of those if you had 10 plantings. It's, you have the 3 or 4 rows of pansies around the front, you'd be pretty close to your 75%. I didn't know if it was, I thought we did have a list of plants we have with some DAs to what they got to put in, what they recommend, what we recommend to put into DAs. Is that right too? Or?
We do for commercial and industrial developments and larger scale developments.
Yeah, and that becomes a bit hard to police too, apparently, because one developer there put Chinese elms in or something, and the next fellow wanted to put Chinese elms in, but it was rejected because it wasn't on the list. And it was going to attract birds to the airport. So we can have a row wherever we go, but if you think it's not right to have 75% native stuff up there, you don't have it. But it does look quite good, native people, native stuff. Then you can have you may somewhere the kangaroos might camp more happily.
Councillor Downing.
So just referring to Councillor Watt's referral to the advertising material that there's been a lot of issues with that. Obviously, this is why we have that, because of the Tokyo Terrace multi-dwelling that we knocked back last year. But do you know if that has been followed?
We have done a review of all of the DAs that have been determined in that estate, and it has never been utilised as part of the assessment process and has never been recognised as a regulatory tool.
Right.
So no, it has not been followed.
Okay. It hasn't been followed.
It has never been adopted by council,
Right.
therefore we have never been able to utilise that as an
Okay.
assessment tool.
Sorry, can I just clarify in that
Councillor
response?
Watt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's never been a requirement that council has checked, but we haven't done an assessment on whether the constituents have followed that recommendation.
Through the
Is that
chair,
correct?
our town planners have actually, as part of this process,
Mhm.
have actually done a drive-through around that estate, and they have provided me with advice that no, it has not been adhered to at all. And I can guarantee you that we have not required it to be followed or adhered to.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Yes, Councillor Speechley.
So I just have a question in relation to landscaped area. Does that encompass areas such as paved areas, or is it only the soft landscapes we're talking about?
Through the chair, it's only the soft landscape area.
Thank you.
Does it include
Councillor Watt.
grass? Thank you. Does it include grass areas? Because I can see some councils define it as excluding and some don't.
We haven't specified the difference between the two.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, I'm going to put the motion. It's a right of reply, of course.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Mayor Smith. This is actually a decision for each owner to make. I'm quite, I think 75% of landscaped areas being Indigenous is quite onerous for us and for the owner. I think this is a decision that we should leave to the owner themselves to make, whether they want Indigenous plants or whether they want beautiful roses or what they want. London Drive is beautiful and it's got lots of, it hasn't very many natives at all. I think the people in Tokyo Terrace and Seoul have already put in lots of gardens, and I'm pretty sure that most of them aren't native species. So I would say that this is actually just allowing people to do what they would like to do in their own environment in building their new house. So I'm quite sure that this is actually going to make us so much, many more friends than it will enemies. And I think that if we go with it, it will make us a lot of enemies. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fagan. I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour of Councillor Fagan's motion? All those in favour? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All those against? 2. Motion is passed. Okay. There's no late reports. Anybody got a notice of motion? Without notice? Okay, no urgent matters of motions. I'll declare the meeting closed at 6:15.